Welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show and definitely another exciting guest. Let me tell you about today's show, all the way from Greensboro, North Carolina. We're going to dive into one woman's resilience. And what I mean by resilience is just imagine, if you will, going into a marriage that you knew you wasn't supposed to do, but you did it anyway, which we're going to learn about that. Then trying to give it another shot, it's just not happening again. And then you got two beautiful kids, and you're fighting the system to gain and keep custody of your children at the same time, and trying to start a career. And it goes on and on and on. So much so that you ask yourself, am I going to lose the resilience that I once had? Then you ask yourself, in deep meditation, how do I get it back? How do I get back the innocence, the power that I once had? How do I take what was that I allowed to escape me to come back so I can be that influence to my children, to my family, to my friends? This young lady has definitely took the word resilience plus beast mindset plus spirituality plus the never say die attitude and has done some remarkable things. Let's welcome to the show the one, the only Miss Bonnie Roberts. What's up, Bonnie?
Not much. How are you?
Come on, you got to give me a better intro than that. What's up, Bonnie?
What's up? What's happening?
All right, that sounds a little bit better now. Don't get all proper on my show, with all the stuff you just accomplished. You better come on here and be like, "What's up, Dre?" She's like, "Okay."
Hey.
Such a beautiful story, and let me first say thank you for taking time out to come on the show and share such a great story. But before we get into the two marriages, the custody, the setting records with the company that you're at, you're being an author, who exactly is Bonnie?
Well, I'm a single mom of 3. My son, he's my oldest. He just turned 19, and I have 2 girls that are 14 and 12. I love my friends, family. I'm a hard worker. I love to break records. I'm passionate about helping people really get the best version of themselves, and to help them build their legacy. Very passionate about that. I'm very passionate about helping those that want to help themselves, because that's important. That's key because it's mindset, right? I'm an author. I sing. I write songs. Yeah, just me.
Let's go here for a minute. You wind up being young and you get your first marriage. What was that like for you? Because I think that's where everything began to start for you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What was that like, and why did you feel like at first that was not the way you should have went, but you went down that road anyway? Explain to me how that took place, the good, the bad, and the ugly with that first marriage.
The first marriage was with my daughter's father, and it was arranged. It was by a cult church, whatever you want to call it, that both of us attended to. I went there for 10 years and devoted my life, left, my old life, sinful life, as they say, and devoted all of everything I had to this organization. And being a single mom with my son, they really wanted people like me, single parents, to really get married. And of course, I know I have a calling on my life, and um, in a God sense, right? But I was going to their Bible school, so they're really big on, okay, if you're a single parent, you got to get married, right?
I have
And
to cut you off, but I just got to ask this question. What organization is this? Is it Mormons? Is it Jehovah Witnesses? Is it Latter Day Saints? I mean, who would even? What's the name of the organization? Because you're not gonna get in trouble.
no, it's called New Testament Christian Church of America.
Okay, so how old were you when all of this new adaptation began to take place for you?
I joined the church right after my son was born, and I had him when I was 24.
So about 24 years old, you mentioned, I'm trying to go back and catch the people. I'll make sure we got a clarity going here.
Of course.
Clarity. So you said the church basically wanted you there because you was living what they call a sinful life. What were you doing at 20 something years old? You was probably acting, you probably were wild. Were you really wild like they said?
No, not really. I just had my son, and I would go to clubs or whatever, live in the moment, but I never really had a crazy life, I I knew I wanted to change it because I was living in Seattle at the time, and then um, I found out I was pregnant, and then I got so sick with the pregnancy, I ended up losing my job. And so I ended up moving in with my son's grandmother, and we lived with her for quite some time. But she's the one that strongly recommended that I start attending church because I lived with her, and it made her look bad because I wasn't attending church. So I kind of felt like I had to. She was basically giving me an ultimatum, not that I wasn't, looked down upon going to church. I was okay with going to church, but just to make you look good, it just, to me, right then was a red flag. But out of respect, I started going uh, once in a while, and then I ended up going every service, which was Sunday morning, Sunday night, Saturday, Wednesday Bible study, Thursday, and then practically almost every day. We had something
I,
going.
I know somebody gonna throw a stone at me, but that's too much religion for me.
I'm not gonna throw a stone. I think it can be over saturated.
Yeah.
I go to church. I have a strong belief. God is what got me through this year. Um, I have a very
Where was
strong
your
walk with
mom and
God.
dad? Like, where was your parents? Why were you living with his
My
parents? Where were
parents,
your parents?
I was born and raised in Ohio. And my all of my family lived in
What part of
Ohio.
Ohio? This is
Columbus
interesting.
area.
What part of Ohio? Oh,
Columbus area.
Columbus, Dublin. I used to live in Dublin, Hilliard, Gahanna.
Okay, okay.
So where were you at in Columbus?
I wasn't in Columbus. I was in Seattle, Washington, in Washington State, when I had my son. But when I was
Oh,
born and
okay.
raised, I lived. I always say Columbus because that's where I was born. But
Right.
because I was adopted at about 2 years old, my great aunt and
Oh,
uncle adopted me. But we lived in this. They consider it a village because it's such a small town or entity because it's less than 1,000 people, in a small place called Gloucester, Ohio,
yeah.
which nobody knows where that's at, but it's more of a like a central Ohio. It's about an hour and a half away from Columbus.
So you was adopted. So why, back to my question, why didn't you stay with your parents?
Why I didn't stay with my parents? Because when I was, what, 16, 17, my mother had sent me to a boarding school, and it was in Cincinnati. And I was really salty about it, you know. I felt like, you know, was she had heard something my niece had told her that I was having relations and this and that, and I wasn't. And that turning point for me caused me not to go back. You know, I wanted to do stuff on my own. I wanted to figure out life on my own. Um, and honestly, I knew that if I stayed in Ohio, there was nothing there. You know, I felt like I had to, I had to go somewhere to do something with my life because I always knew that there was something more for me. And I just, I had to do something. I moved all across the country. I know it was dramatic, but I had to
Did
do
you know
something.
where you was going, and how old were you when you decided to be rebellious? And did you know where you was going? How did you get
Be
to where you was
rebellious.
at? Yeah.
I was 21. I was 21. I decided that, you know, I- Ohio had nothing there for me, and I made the decision to move to Washington State.
But while Washington State, did you know somebody there? How did Washington
Yes.
State up on your radar?
I moved with a significant other. He was relocating there because he enjoyed it there. I visited previously with him, and I enjoyed it. It was beautiful. I loved the food, the people, and I decided, okay, let's do it. It was very spontaneous. It was very, you know, I mean, it was planned, but it wasn't. But I knew I needed that break, so I went on for the ride.
So you went on for the ride with this significant other. Evidently, you had a pretty good relationship. Um, you wind up. Is this the same individual that you wind up living with? The grandparents or the lady that made you go to church?
No, it's somebody entirely different.
So you separate from that individual and you meet this guy, correct?
Correct.
Um, Now you're in the house with this guy. How did that relationship falter? Did Was he growing up in the church as well, like his grandparents or the people that you live with?
Um, you mean my son's father or
Yeah, your son's
my
father.
son's father? I'm sorry.
Your son's father.
You My son's father, I actually met on social media. He DM'd me, and it was actually the first time I was really out because really wasn't on social media back then, but social media just started to be a thing. And we had a blind date. A friend recommended, hey, you know, you should get out there, you know, meet people, see, maybe he's the one, whatever. And I was like, sure, why not? Um, and we went out on a blind date, and yeah, it we were in a relationship not very long um when I found out I was pregnant, and he he didn't want a child. He was all into the nightlife and, you know, living person to person, and he just wanted that nightlife experience and stay to that. Me, I didn't believe in abortion, and so I wasn't going to allow a decision that we both made to, you know, go against my beliefs. So I had my son, and he's never been in my son's life.
Now, let me make sure I got this right. You're living with his family though, right?
Yes, with his
That's
mother.
making you guys go to church. So did you marry him as well?
No, I did not marry him.
Okay, so now I'm just catching everybody up on what's going on. So let's move forward with this. He's you meet somebody else. How did this marriage thing come about? This first marriage then?
It was through the church.
So you were still going to
Because
church even though you separated with this guy.
no, right. I started going to church after um me and my son's father separated and broke up. I started going to church after my son was born. So he was not in my life or my son's life um, quite some time before I even started going.
Uh-huh. And
And
then
then, mhm.
go ahead. Go ahead.
And then, once I had my son, his grandmother, came to me and was like, look, you're living here. I go to church, we go what they call soul winning on Saturdays, where they literally did like the Mormons, where they would knock on the doors and invite people out to church and things like this. And she was like, how does that look upon me if you're living under my roof and you're not even attending church one time out of a week? So I think you need to start at least attending one time out of a week. Pick a day, pick a night, whatever, and let me know when that's going to be. So I believe it was Sunday night that I chose. And then eventually I felt like the right thing to do is to, start going more, because of the fact that I didn't want my son being raised in a fast paced world. I wanted him to grow up in church. Because I grew up in church. I'm a PK kid. My mom was an ordained minister. Um, so I know the fundamentals. I know how imperative being in church, being raised is. And so with that, I made the decision to go ahead and, be a member of the church. And I was going every day, every night, every time the doors was open, which was almost every day.
I think it's kind of funny in a way. Your mom is an ordained minister
Yes, she was.
and you was rebellious.
I,
That doesn't add up. You know that, right?
I wouldn't say I was rebellious. I just knew that, because she put me in this boarding school, that I just I couldn't I just couldn't go back to that. She didn't allow me to, you know, ex defend myself, take up for myself, to explain. She just assumed, because of what my niece was saying, oh, you're having relations with, all of these guys. And I wasn't even doing anything like that, at that point. And it just, it really bothered me.
Okay, so now you're still with his in-laws. You're going to church. How did the arranged marriage, how did this new guy come into the picture, and how did marriage become the center focal point? Because you wasn't ready to go down that road, but you did it anyway.
No, I wasn't. I mean, even it's kind of, I chuckle because it's kind of funny in a sense. It is, but it isn't. And I'll explain that. When I started going to the church, different guys, after I had been going for a year, maybe 2 years. I don't remember the details on, time frames, but guys would start, asking the pastor's wife or the pastor, hey, I would like to court or talk to Miss Roberts. And um and it would that's how it had to be. Like, for example, I'll give you the foundation of it. So, especially when you're in their Bible school, you are required, the only time that you are to speak to the a person that you're, courting or dating or talking to is on Sunday nights in the fellowship hall on this wall. Uh, and these rows of tables where everybody can see you and stuff like that. You couldn't go on an actual date to dinner, to the movies, or anything like that. It wasn't allowed. And so they would go through the pastor and pastor's wife to then approach the individual that they're interested in talking to. And so my daughter's father had approached the pastor's wife multiple times, a good 4 or 5 times. And each time I had said, no, thank you, no, thank you, I'm not interested. And at each time I was like, okay, well, maybe, this is my pastor and this is my pastor's wife. They're directing me. Maybe they know something that I don't know. But it was always an inner conflict with me because the fact that, not only, okay, they're my pastor and pastor's wife, but also she would always say, well, you'll be in the inner crowd because he's been in the church for 21 years, and he's really close to my father, which is the person that you know was the founder of this organization. And just all of these things, like, she was really trying to sell it. That's how I felt. And
How much older
eventually,
was he than you?
11 years, 11 years.
Okay. Okay.
And at the time, I believe I was 27, 28. Um, and it happened really fast. We were only courting, as they say, for just a couple months. But yeah, eventually I said, fine, okay, I will talk to him. And
Why did you not want to talk to him? Let's go there for a minute, not to cut you off.
no, it's
There were,
fine.
you mentioned, I always call them flags. So evidently you had a lot of flags at 27 when you saw this guy, even though you was in the church. What was the things that your gut instinct was telling you this thing was, what I want?
One, I mean, I wasn't attracted to him. That's the first thing. Secondly, he just, I mean, I'm not trying to sound superficial, but like, he wasn't my type, but his age bothered me. You know what I mean? I was really young. I had my son, which is, you know, biracial, and I felt that he needed a father figure that would be able to help him understand his identity. I can only do so much Um, as a
So the guy
mother,
that they was getting ready to introduce you to was Caucasian,
yes,
and you felt like by your son being biracial, what can he contribute to the development of your son as well? Correct.
exactly.
Okay. So you went on through with it anyway. What was that like?
Um, it was hell. It was hell. It was very, he treated me like a trophy wife. Um,
What does that mean? A
he,
trophy wife. What does that mean? We used to hear that back in the day, but for the new generation, what is that? What does that mean, and what's that like to be treated like a trophy wife?
a trophy wife is where, and this was preached over the pulpit, by the way. Okay.
Really?
That, yes, unfortunately, that you are supposed to look pretty, smell pretty, but not to have a voice. You can't speak. You're supposed to be seen and not heard. And that's it. That was your place. And whenever he desire, chose to give attention or whatever, then he would take me off the shelf, so to speak, and we would eventually go out to dinner or do something. But no, it was my place was to always take care of the kids. I wasn't allowed to work the whole marriage, because that was against the rules of the church. They took what the Bible says the woman is supposed to be the homemaker, and of course I'm paraphrasing, to a literal stance. Like, I couldn't dye my hair, couldn't wear makeup, had to wear dresses, no jewelry. Like, the only jewelry you're allowed is, your wedding ring and a watch. That's it. So clearly my appearance right now would be appalling to them, and, and their description, I'm a sinner, but, I'm not. Um, yeah, it was extreme. It was extreme. But they even preached over the pulpit that they wouldn't say these words, but the men in the church took it to this, that basically the woman is the slave of the man. Um, I was doing, paying all of the bills, going grocery shopping, doing all of these things for him, and all he did was went to work, came home, ate, and slept. He didn't take care of the kids or helped out. It was me. I did everything. I was behind the scenes, taking care of everything, running ragged, um, and
So
making sure everything was.
was it was it more was it more mental abuse versus physical and verbal?
No, it was all. Unfortunately, it was all. It was mental, it was emotional, it was physical.
When this happens to you, you're still young. When did this really start happening to you? How deep were you into the relationship? I mean, into the marriage?
It was right after. It was right
Like a
after.
week, 2 weeks after the honeymoon?
Even in the at the during our first honeymoon, because his parents had, because I was in Bible school and we were still in classes, so we weren't allowed to go away, for an extended week or whatever, because I was in Bible school. So it wasn't allowed. So we went for the weekend, um, in Mount Rainier. There was some cabins and whatnot, and um we did a weekend getaway, but even during the honeymoon, he wanted to, watch movies, or he wanted to go on his Facebook account, I think it was. Again, back then I didn't even have social media at this point, because, I didn't have time to do any of that because I was a single mom, working full time, going to school full time. trying to survive. But anyway, um, it was just different and weird. And like, I even had the thoughts like, what in the world did I get myself into? Um, Even that weekend. And the church preaches on, oh, divorce, you can't get a divorce unless they abandon you, or, that's really the only reason. And my thought was like, oh my God, I have to stay in this marriage to this man. And like, this person isn't even interested in me. And I'm like,
What do you mean when you say he's not interested in you, but he took the time to pursue you with the pastor's wife repetitively? What do you mean he wasn't into you? I mean, how do you turn that off and on like that?
I'll fast forward and then I'll answer that question, because then you'll understand. Um, when I found out I was pregnant for my second child, my 14-year-old, when I was 8 months pregnant, him and I got into an argument, and he told me that, well, I would never I was never attracted to somebody in your physique. And then he went on to explain that he was attracted to the pastor's wife, her physique, and he even said her name. And here I am, 8.5 months pregnant, carrying our baby, and you're telling me you're not physically attracted to my body. And so going back to your question, that's why I say he wasn't attracted to me. His example was, well, because we had to wear dresses, but I didn't wear like a paper bag. You could still see my figure and things like that. But he never really paid attention to it, I guess. And he
I just
just,
can't
I
believe that
think
he would verbally tell you that he's attracted to the pastor's wife. Did you ever share that with her and her husband?
no, no, I did not. Because at this point, I just, like, I couldn't get off the fact that you just told me this. I'm 8 months pregnant with our child. You wanted children. I'm giving you a child. But yet you have the audacity to say I'm not physically attracted to you. Like, to me, that cut deep. Um, and with everything that I did for that man, you know, I woke up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, because he's a special inspector for construction sites. So his schedule was all over the place. If
Mhm.
he wanted breakfast before he left, guess what? I woke up, and I know that's how it's supposed to be, but I did so much more than that. I ran the entire household, even the finances. Like, he didn't have to worry about any of that. All he did was wake up, go to work, and come home and do his thing, whatever that was. And it was me. Our 14-year-old had reflux. She had, that pregnancy was the hardest by far. She had flipped to where she was breech, and then I had to get an aversion, which is where they literally flip the baby head down while you're pregnant outside, maneuvering on your stomach, hoping and praying that, you don't go into labor. The pregnancy was 23 hours long. I had her at home. I had both of my daughters at home. No epidural, no drugs, no nothing. Like I had a midwife. Um,
Was he there?
to He was there. He was there, but I had somebody there I had a doula, I had my midwife, and I had a person there to just be with me because I don't want him all he did was look down at me because I did it in a pool, a home birthing pool. And all he would do is, have his arms crossed and looking down on me like I'm I'm beneath him or something. Like he wasn't, comforting or anything like that. But I didn't want him to be because at that point I was just I'm here and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and that's it. Like there was nothing
Why
there was
didn't you
nothing.
go? Were you able to share the things that you was dealing with? You're part of the church, and were you still close friends with your son's grandmother? I mean, did you have an outlet that you could go to, and did you share your discontent with what you thought was a structural, sound, religious, organized, based family structure?
I mean, yeah, I had people I talked to. The person that um was there by my side, helping me breathe and stuff like that, stay focused, grounded, to give birth to my first daughter. She actually was there for my second daughter's birth as well. But yeah, I mean, I spoke to different ones. I even reached out because it wasn't just me that the abuse was happening to, it was my son as well. Like once my our first daughter was born, um my son just he just brushed him off like he didn't exist, and I hated that. It broke my heart because
Was
for
he
so
upset
long,
because he was he upset because he was a biracial child, maybe?
honestly, I don't know. I don't know. It has crossed my mind, especially things that um you know my daughters have said, years down the road, and even comments that, they say, and I have to sit them down like, look, you can't say these types of things because it comes across being racial, and I'm not okay with that. And I explain, look, your brother is biracial, you if somebody, you know, were to hear you say that, that's not okay, and it's just, and
Where were
I
they learning
can't,
this type of behavior is the key.
his
Right?
family,
Wow.
because they weren't around me, because my kids, fast forwarding, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but so that you and the audience can see the full picture and understand everything, I have to do that. Um, when I decided, oh, I was like, because it got to the point where the girls' father was threatening to kill us. And I
What?
had to take, yes, he would get angry and he is like, I'm gonna kill you guys. And he said that it was just in the moment, he would never do it, but I had to take it seriously. I was terrified, especially with the things that was happening. He
Mhm.
would physically, my youngest at the time, she was an infant. Well, she was like 13 months, so toddler stage. But she had infant and toddler asthma, so he would spank her so hard that it would put her in an asthma attack. Or there was welts and bruises on my kids or myself and all of these things, right?
Hmm.
So I'm not going to apologize for having to protect my kids and take what you're saying. I don't care if you're kidding or not. For one, nobody should be kidding like that. That's not normal. That's not okay. That's a form of manipulation, trying to put fear in you to control you. And so I had to take it seriously. So I did. I filed a restraining order against him.
Did you
And
get in trouble from child services?
um later on, yes, I did. Because of what happened was I did the restraining order. They, they approved it and everything. But what happened was, one, he stopped paying the mortgage. I wasn't working. I wasn't allowed to work, right? And then, so I physically could not make a $1,600 mortgage payment at the time, over 10 years ago. And so my three kids, me, I'm like, okay, what do I do? I can't afford an apartment. Apartments back then for even a studio was over $1,500 and they wanted three times your rent. I ain't making any money. I couldn't get on assistance, because I was married to this man that, had a good income. And so, like, all of these things ended up to where I then am like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. I'm trying
Right.
to find a job. I haven't been working for 8 years because of being in this marriage, right?
Hmm.
Nobody really wanted to hire somebody that had three kids and is going through a divorce. And, they didn't know that, but they know they asked, well, why is there an 8-year gap? And well, I was married, I'm going through a divorce, but here's my skills. I'm able to do this.
Did you have skills?
I did. I did. I had a lot of experience in the I was in customer service a lot, like call center experience. I did administrative work. I was an office manager. I mean, there was just a lot of things, experience that I had. But no one really cared about that. What they cared about was that 8-year gap because I did nothing. And then I finally had a company, take a chance on me, and I worked there for over 6 years. Um, but the point is,
Nobody from your church came to help you?
no, because at this point I had left the church. Let me back up again. We had left the church because my parents, my siblings, they all passed away in the same year. I was
So
actually pregnant. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. I was pregnant for my last child, or our last child, and I was on bed rest most of the time, because she just, at, I think it was 20 weeks, I believe, I started dilating and going into preterm labor. So I had to be on um, bed rest that whole time. But, one of my siblings passed away uh, right after Christmas. Then 6 days later, another sibling passed away, and then another sibling passed away within 21 days. And then that November, my mom passed away, and then my father passed away because of a broken heart. But long story short, I had no one, but when all of this happened, people would come up to me because, mind you, I'm on bed rest. I can't go to church, right? Um,
Hmm.
because of the safety of me and my unborn child. And people would call me up saying, "Oh, well, you need to just believe God is going to heal you and, keep you and your daughter safe. You just need to come to church and get prayed for." Um, that's great and all. People can pray or come to my home and pray for me, but
Right.
I'm going to listen to a medical professional saying, "Do not, you have to be on bed rest, or
Hmm.
your child is going to be lost and it could affect you as well." I'm not I'm going to listen to the professional and not somebody that's trying to be spiritual on me, right?
Hmm.
But after I came back from burying my mother, um, I, we all went to church because my heart was broken at that point. I've experienced all of this loss, and then, my mom's taken, and then, you know, I'm like, okay, well, I just need to be in church. I just, my heart was so heavy. Whew.
Take your time.
My heart was so heavy. And so I wanted to go to somewhere, my safe place, right? That I thought was safe. Um, so I could be around my people. And that night, because it was a Sunday evening, a bunch of people came to me. "Oh, well, I thought you left the church." And it wasn't only me that they came to, but they came to my girls' father. "Oh, we thought you left the church. Where?" And not that I had to explain myself, or neither did he, but I was like, I just buried my mother. Not only a few months before that, I buried my siblings while I was pregnant, on top of now I'm burying my mother.
Hmm.
And all they can say is, "Oh, we thought you left the church."
What was he doing during all of this misfortunes that happened to you? Where was he at? Because you're not divorced yet.
No, 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 we're not divorced yet. Um, when my siblings passed away, he was still working. Him and my son um, stayed in Washington State until my nieces and nephews and my mom had, they were upset because I was my niece's voice. She was beside herself. She was a mess. I mean, everything fell on her because she was the only child. And I was like, "Okay, Kelly, I've got you. I'll deal with the family." I had to. I felt like that was my responsibility to protect her because she just lost her mom. And trying to plan everything. The family thought that my mother was the one that should have um, did everything, and they were angry, they were upset. We were told that she had a life insurance policy. We found out that she didn't, and the family jumped to conclusions saying, and even was blasting this on social media, by the way. And they were like, "Oh, they're just trying to not give, my sister the funeral she deserved. She has life insurance. They're taking the money and running with it." Why would we do that? Just all of this toxic nonsense, right?
Hmm.
And when they find out that, oh, she didn't have a life insurance policy, they expected my husband to pay for everything because he was the only one that, you know, had money, right?
Uh,
And that's just, I don't know. I just, ever since then, I've distanced myself from my family. My family has always been not smart with money, or not really. I wouldn't say all of my family, but immediate family, they were either on welfare or, you know, disability or whatever, you know. Besides, you know, two of my brothers, one was in the military, the other one worked all most of his life, but the rest of them, no, they wanted handouts, and that's really why I walked away from Ohio, because it's like I don't want to be a part of that mindset. I've always, like, I started working at the age of what, 15, 16. I was
uh,
providing for myself, you know, and I had to defend for myself because my mom forced me into this boarding school that, you know, how am I supposed to eat? How am I supposed to get stuff I need? She didn't
so how
help with that.
so how do you walk away from the first marriage?
I walk away because
No, how
he
did you walk away?
because I told him I wanted a divorce because of what his threats. I put a restraining order against him. Um, they had to serve him, the police had to serve him, so I had to get him to come to the house, um, you know, find out when he was going to arrive, and then they gave him the paperwork and this and that. And
That couldn't have went over well with the church.
well, at this point we weren't even going to the church anymore. So
So
that's why they didn't.
how did he take it? Because you said he wasn't the you know the perfect person. Was he abusive after he got the letter? How did your life change prior to when he got the papers? Did he become more uh, manic?
Um, I mean, he was very upset. I saw him with the police officer, um, but he didn't do anything to me because I was inside of the house. But after that, it we didn't. There was not allowed any communication because of the restraining order. And then, my son's grandmother had decided to put a re- put a report on CPS, and she said that I was being neglectful. Mind you, she's upset because I think a year prior to this, I had stopped her completely from having any relationship with my children because she's delusional. She had said, you know, convinced everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people in the church that, oh, she was going to marry this pastor that was out in the field, and they had a relationship and it was God ordained and all of this stuff. And it really wasn't. It was all in her head. And then she had telling, you know, her friends and this and that, like they were sending her wedding presents. That's how far this went. Okay. But I had shared this because it just wasn't adding up. Things, just red flags all over the place, right? And I had reached out to the pastor and pastor's wife. I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. You may want to look into this, whatever. And of course, they look into it and find that it's all lies. It's not true. And so at that point, I was like, okay, well, you either get help because clearly something mentally is wrong,
Mhm.
or you can't be around my kids because this is unacceptable. Because at this point, she has my son brainwashed so much that he believes her. He can't got in my face at 5, 6 years old. Oh, I'm gonna believe my nana because she's never gonna lie to me. Well, she was, because of this delusion that she was in. And so, with that being said, she had put this false report in, and at this point, they had foreclosed the house. It was being auctioned, so I had to move out. Me and my kids were homeless. At this point, I already was introduced to the person that I end up marrying the second time, or for my second marriage. And
Wait a minute. Hold down.
you're like, time out.
Yeah, hold down. How did you get introduced to the second guy? What? Because are you done with Bachelor number one? Are you done with him? The divorce is done. Restraining
The
orders.
divorce wasn't finalized, but we were done. Yes, we were done.
Okay, so how did you meet number two?
I
You,
met number two on a dating app, actually. My niece had, she knew what we were going through, and or what me and my kids were going through. What
were you
I
really ready to put
No,
yourself out on a
no,
dating app when you're still dealing with, trying
no.
to get a divorce? Your kids is being brainwashed. Difficult pregnancies, loss in the family. The listeners would be like, okay, excuse my friends, what the fuck are you thinking?
Yeah, that part. Um, I was lost,
Okay, and
honestly.
that's understandable. This just free. So you meet the second guy. How did you meet, and how did that wind up coming to a divorce as well?
Um, so I had met him on an app. He had reached out to me, actually, and we had, um, we were talking and stuff like that. We exchanged numbers, but my niece was like, "Oh, you just need a friend, a companion to, get you through this." And what I really need was just deal with my grief, because at this point, because, you know, having children, having all of these things, um, these responsibilities, I didn't have time to just sit down and just grieve, like process the fact that my sibling, like, I'm an orphan. Let's be real. I mean, yes, I'm older, but I I had a huge family to where, you know, my parents, my siblings are all gone. Like, I wasn't able to process that. I was pregnant, then I had her, and then, dealing with the everyday, focusing on them, taking care of them. I didn't have
Mhm.
time to go through that. Um, and
So
I,
you
I
meet
didn't have
him and you
time to.
develop. So you meet him and develop a relationship. Nevertheless,
I
then
do.
what
I do.
what happened? You didn't see flags in that, or you was so far gone that you really didn't even pay those flags any attention?
The latter, unfortunately. I hate to admit it, but I just pushed it away, you know. Um, and it was yeah. And fast forwarding, it almost cost me my life, but
What do you
it
mean when you say almost cost you your life? You don't have to go deep, but what do you mean? Oh, I know. I'm not going to, you told me.
yeah, I did tell you.
Yeah, can I share it? I'm gonna let you say what do you do?
Oh, hold on a second. I am so sorry, my dog. Um, I, fast forwarding, we got married. We were together on and off for, wait, 7, 8 years before we even got married. Um, and the reason why is because he legally was, you know, married. He had told me at the beginning that, he was divorced and, whatever. And, because I was transparent, I was like, I'm going through a divorce, but things, um, I was, because of the restraining order, like it was a slower process. Like the divorce, excuse me, took about 2 years to start to finish. Because then the CPS thing came along and all of the stuff, right, that held everything up. So it halted the divorce. But anyway, going back to that, um, he told me he was divorced. He was a single dad of two kids, their ages. And we talked for a long time before we even, went and had a date or whatever, because just I just wasn't ready for that. That next step kind of thing. But we would talk almost every day, every evening. Um, and he came across
How
like a
does
good
he
guy.
do that if he's how does he do that if he's married? How do you carry on a relationship for that long extended amount of time and you not know that he's married?
Because she's in the military and she was stationed in a different country. That's how. But I found out that he was married because he actually let it slip. We were on the phone and he had worked late and he went to a meeting or whatever that he had, because he was an insurance broker. And he was at a client's house and he was leaving, and then this individual came up to him, was hitting on him, and he was like, oh, well, I have a wife and a girlfriend and, all of this stuff. And he was explaining it to me, and I was like, wait, you have a wife? Oh, yeah, yeah. And he was just playing it off. And right then and there, I should have been like, no, you lied to
How
me.
long had you been dating him before that slipped?
It was like 3 months. It was 3 months. And
But you
I should have
married him.
dropped it
But
in.
you married him.
I know.
You know,
I
people are
know.
going to listen to this and be like, okay, is she crazy? I'm just
I know.
being real. I mean,
I know. I know.
I'm sitting here going, Lord, man, this can't be real. It sounds like a soap opera that I'm getting a free ticket to.
I
Okay,
know.
so I know this may sound stupid as all I do, but I just got to ask this. He pretty much told you, you find out that he's married and he admits he has a girlfriend and you still marry him. I mean, clearly, did you need some help?
Mental health, I no, I would say no, I did not need mental help. What I needed was to understand my worth, because at this point, I didn't see myself worthy or valued like I should have. Um,
What about your kids? I mean, you know, you have a biracial son who's been neglected off and on, you know, a guy who's you guys been brainwashed by a religious organization. You lost the family that you known. I mean, I'm looking at all this collateral damage, and I get it. Yeah, you've been demoralized, so to speak, and your self worth is probably, you know, totally destroyed. But at the end of the day, don't you sit back and go, this dude just told you He's married, got a girlfriend. I mean, do you not look at your kids and say, I can't make this decision?
Unfortunately, no, I didn't. Because
And I don't mean that to sound cruel at
no,
all.
no,
I
I'm not
just,
offense. I don't take offense to it
I'm
at all.
I'm
My
just
story is
I'm
my
putting
story.
myself in the mind of the listeners,
Right.
and and thinking, what must they be thinking? Because I'm thinking, okay, either your self esteem is shot so low that, let's get real, you just probably just gave up and was like, okay, I might as well just go on and finish the roller coaster.
Pretty much. I was so I didn't I lost my identity and everything. I lost the person I was when, it was just me and my son. I was so focused on taking care of my three kids and trying to have a roof over their head that I endured a lot. I ignored red flags just so, let's be real, we could have a roof over our head because I had no one. Even these thousands of people that I devoted my life to for 10 years, they all turned their back on me because we stopped going to the church. Oh, we can't
let's
help
let's
you.
let's go back. I just got to ask these questions.
Of course.
You already knew the church had turned their back on you. I mean, it didn't take the first marriage to see that. I mean, here's a guy that's telling you, hey, I think the pastor's wife is hot as hell. Oh, you're a piece of shit, but you carrying my baby. You go to the church and you tell them, and or I mean, you already knew these things. You know what I mean? So let's move forward. And I'm sorry that all this happened. I'm not trying to be mean or malicious or anything like that at all. I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes and go, why didn't you just see these things?
Trauma, honestly. And just in survival mode. I devoted my life 10 years, to this church, um, which they just turned their backs on me right away, um, because I'm no longer going there. Trying to keep my kids because everything up that led up to this point, I have done for them. I endured everything I endured with this man because I was trying to protect my kids. And for the end result, for them to just be taken away, like, at this point, like, I had already lost my parents, I already lost my kids, but I mean my siblings, but now the only thing I'm living for is my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they're taken away. Like,
Did you lose your children?
I did. I did.
How?
And because when my first husband, the girls' dad, decided to stop paying the mortgage, the house foreclosed, right? It went on auction. Well, I didn't have anywhere else to go. I have nowhere to turn. I didn't have friends at this point because they all abandoned me because of the church. They were connected to it. And so, um, and my family that was back in Ohio, they didn't offer, or they said that they couldn't help put four people in somewhere. I was like, let us sleep on the couch. I don't care, It, like, just give us a roof over our head. But no, no, it wasn't an option.
Who turned
And
you in to
so
child services?
my son's grandmother. Remember, I had said
Yeah.
that she had put a false claim. Well, at this point, me and my kids, well, it's either sleeping in the car or staying with my soon to be second husband's under his roof in a 2-bedroom apartment with him and his 2 kids, which we'd be on the couch or whatever, and that's what we did. But it was either one of those things. So I chose the best option I had, which really wasn't a good option in the first place, but those were my options. That was the cards I was dealt with. And so we moved in with him. Of course, that CPS investigation happened. And because we were living together, he as an adult, me as an adult, we both had to have, our background checks and all of that. Well, it flagged something for him because his older son had tried to hurt his mother and his brother. He stabbed them because he had behavioral things, and I didn't know about it. And so that's what pivoted and put the alarm on CPS, and they looked at me as, oh, well, I'm an inadequate parent. Like, I'm putting my kids in self-harm, and I didn't even know that this was happening. And I told them, I'm like, okay, well, no, I had no idea, but help me get my own place. Like, cause I'm not working at this point. Help me put a roof over my kids' head. And instead of, they said that they didn't have the resources to do that or to help or any of that. Okay, well, then what do I do? I literally have nowhere else to go. And so they decided to take my kids away.
I'm deeply sorry. And first of all, let me say thanks so much for sharing this story. Before we wrap up, you eventually get a divorce from the second husband, correct? The second husband, correct?
It's in the works, yes. It's not finalized yet, but because of the North Carolina, you have to wait a whole year. Him and I's relationship has been over since I found out that he cheated and all of this stuff a year ago, September. And then that October, I got really sick.
What do you mean you got really sick? We didn't capitalize off of something. This dude tried to poison you or was poisoning you. Is that why you're sick?
Yeah, later I find out that that's why I was sick. I
How do
was
you know that he tried to poison, that he was poisoning you?
Well, the test came back that I had arsenic in my body. Um, can I say that I have a video of him, doing all of this stuff? No, no, I don't. And unfortunately,
Well, who's going to
it,
take arsenic? Let's get real.
I
You're not
know,
going to
I
sit
know,
there and take arsenic.
right? But I find out, he's taking me to the cardiologist. He's taking me in and out of the hospital. Like, he's taking me to all of these appointments, making me think like, oh, he cares, he's worried, and this and that, while he's doing these things to me, right? And when I find out that I have arsenic, the first test was a blood test, so it was really low. It was at a 3, but later on, we find out that that's because of microdosing. That's why the levels are so low, and it was happening over time. But when I did research and I was, my doctor was still doing all of these tests, and because with arsenic poisoning, it's going to affect your heart, it's going to affect your immune system, it's going to affect all of these things that I was experiencing. Every single side effect of being poisoned I was having. And
Did you
so
report it to the authorities
I
with
did.
your doctor? With your doctor?
I mean, we did, but they said if you don't have basically a video of him proving that he was putting it in your food or your hygiene stuff or on your clothing or anything like that, that there's really nothing we can do. Because with arsenic, if you do your research, it shows that it can be water contamination, it can be, you know, bad fish, or, you know, different things you can get that from. But with the amounts of arsenic that was in my body, I should have been dead.
I'm surprised
And
that a doctor, a toxicologist, wouldn't be able to go to the police and say exactly what you just said. There's no way in the world, with the levels that she's gotten in her system, that this was something that was consumed with a can of fish and drinking some water.
right, but it didn't happen. So
When you did you confront him about it?
before I when I got the blood test back that it was low, and I was like, "Are you poisoning me? Are you giving me arsenic?" And he just deflected, like totally changed the subject. He didn't deny it. He didn't um
Had he been served divorce papers at this time?
no, but he knew that because I told him in the month prior to that that I wanted a divorce. And then November is when she ran the toxicology blood report. And at this point, she's not too concerned. She was like, well, you know, you could get it from this, you can get it from that. So I'm not really worried about it. But then something told me, okay, I need to not eat his food, because at this point, you know, I started a new joined a new company, being an independent contractor with, and you know, I'm just trying to, you know, learn that and, you know, get that going on top of being sick, right? You
Mhm.
know, and so I I lost my train of thought, sorry. So you know, I found that out. She wasn't too worried about it. And then I kept getting sick, right? Because I stopped eating his food because I was like, okay, well, you know, whatever. But the point of, you know, he was the one that was doing most of the cooking, is because I was trying to really focus on, you know, building this new business, right? And so it was just me that ate his food and him, but you know, my son would never eat his food because they never got along. And so when I started getting even sicker, I'm like, what? My doctor's like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? She's running more tests and doing this. Like, I felt like a pincushion. I was going in and out of the getting blood drawn 6, 7, 8 times, and each time was anywhere from 9 to 17 vials of blood each time.
Had you lost your kids already at this point?
Yeah, yeah.
But you didn't
I
lose
lost him
you didn't
10
lose
years
your
ago.
son. Why didn't you lose your son?
I lost my son. He was put in foster care for 2 years, and I got them back. But at this point, my daughters were living with their father, which they still live with their father to
So
this
your
day.
son got taken away too, but you wind up getting him back. So he's in the house with you with the dude that's trying to poison you.
Yes,
And your son and him really don't get along. So you
no.
realize that this dude is married. You
He was
um
at this point. We're him and I are already married, but
so he
he,
did get a divorce from his wife.
yeah, yeah. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to get married. But yes, they
Did
got
his
a
wife
divorce.
know he was seeing you while he was blah blah
Yes.
blah? Did you guys have a relationship at all? And you still married him? Because she probably gave you her side of the story too.
I knew her, but we weren't, like, she didn't like me. She felt like she was intimidated by me because I am a motherly mom. Like I'm just nurturing and I'm really good with kids. She doesn't have that gene, so to speak. She just very selfish and focused on her and her career and didn't really she was okay with me taking care of her kids, which I would not be okay with another woman taking care of my kids. Hold on a second. I am
So,
so
oh, you're fine. So before we wrap up, I'm gonna ask a few questions. Out of all of this turmoil, how long did it take to walk? Well, you're going through the divorce still currently. How did you have time to write the book, Overcoming the God? Make sure I got my glasses. The God comeback, and what does that have to do? What's that relation with this book in your journey?
it talks about my story from start to finish to where, I was adopted. My biological mother was 16 when she had me, and, she was murdered and all of these things. Like, it talks
We
about my
didn't
whole
talk
story.
about that.
No,
Okay,
no,
you're leaving out a lot of crucial
there's
information.
not enough time.
Yeah, you leaving out a lot of crucial information. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna do a part two to this because I didn't even know that part. So what we're gonna do? This is a great story. Every now and then I get a dilly. We're gonna do a part two to this. So uh before we wrap up this episode, just hold that thought on where we're at. We're going to come back and we're going to tie in the book with your story, with the rest of your story, if you don't mind. I think that's only fitting to let people know the full story, not just part of it. And then they read the book and go, well, she didn't say that on Andre's show. So we're going to do a part two to that. And in the meantime, you guys make sure you subscribe, like, share, follow. Remember, the all it takes is one click of that button to make a difference in somebody else's life as well as your own. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for part two of Bonnie Roberts' story on the Andre the Beast Crayton show.